You're in the gym grinding it out set after set, week after week, but you aren't quite seeing the results you thought you would. Well, what if I told you that the devil's in the details and there are probably some key mistakes that are holding you back from the physique you're working so hard to build? You see, most lifters think that they're doing everything right, training hard, eating clean, but these common mistakes are what holds so many back from ever really building truly impressive physiques. And if you don't fix them, you could just keep spinning your wheels. So in this video, I'm going to break down 5 key mistakes in every area of your regimen that lifters make and give you actionable fixes for each of them. By the end, you'll have the blueprint to stop stalling and finally make the most out of your efforts. So let's dive in. Let's start with training mistakes, because no matter how dialed in your nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset are, training is the spark that we need to build the physique of greatness. The first mistake, not tracking your lifts. If you're not logging your weights, sets, and reps, how do you know if you're improving? Sure, you might get away with it for the first year of lifting, but it's still going to be less than ideal. Progressive overload is the key to consistent muscle growth. Without tracking, you're basically guessing, and no, you don't remember what you did last week as clearly as you think. Luckily, you don't have to bring a notebook to the gym because it's nearly 2025 and there's an app for that. Download a free tracking app and it's as easy as that. I've personally been using the app Gravitas since 2019 and it's my top recommendation. Now, it is only available on the Apple Store for now, so an Android alternative could be one like Strong or Heavy. If you jump on Gravitas, by the way, use the referral code JMangoFit and follow me on there to see my own training updated daily. The overlooked part of tracking your sessions is the fact that over time, it builds a log of your training history, which becomes absolutely invaluable each year that you're in this game. The second mistake is an obvious one, but still far too common. That's improper form. The real issue with improper form is that it can be insidious and you don't really realize your form is all that bad, but you're not stimulating growth in the targeted area as a result. And you find this out years later, or worse, you get injured from it eventually. Whether it's using momentum, cutting your range of motion short, or being too robotic with overly emphasized eccentrics, this is one that we all have to watch out for no matter how long we're in this game. So the solution here is to film your lifts regularly, analyze your technique, and make sure that every rep is controlled and effective. Control the lowering phase of the movement for around 2 to 3 seconds and explode up. Adjust your angles as needed until the movement feels that it's targeting what you want best. The third one is tricky because it relies on another mistake, but it's rest times. If you're rushing into your next set because you feel ready to go, or you think it's all about keeping active and keeping the heart rate up, you'll sacrifice performance. It's a sign that you are not training at the intensity required. Muscle growth workouts are not to be rushed. It's all about making every single set count. But that said, resting too long is probably overkill and can kill engagement as well sometimes. Now, while you should probably just rest as long as you feel you need, this should probably land you between 90 seconds and 3.5 minutes between most of your movements. You can also time your rest times, by the way, with the tracking apps that I laid out before to track your training, as they usually have a built-in feature for it. Redundancy is the fourth big issue. Doing a barbell bench press followed by a flat chest press machine, you're essentially just hitting the same muscle fibers twice. Instead, pair complementary angles like a flat press with an incline press. For back day, you can go from a vertical pull, like pull downs, to a horizontal row, to a diagonal roll. Movement variety ensures maximum productivity in your session in each set, and it saves you some time on top. Lastly, intensity. This is by far the biggest issue, and yes, it's still very common. Intensity is not how hard you sweat or pant or how much it burns. Intensity, as it refers to muscle growth workouts, refers to how close to momentary muscular failure you took every single set. If you finish a set with 3 reps in the tank or more, then you probably didn't stimulate as much growth as you otherwise could have. On the flip side, these days it's also common to see too much intensity as well. People hear the first part of this and they say, cool, I'll just take every set to failure so my intensity can never be too low. But then you could always just be inducing unnecessary amounts of fatigue that impede gains over time, especially as you exit the beginner stage. So it probably makes the most sense to keep each set between 0 and 2 reps in reserve with good form on most of your compound lift sets. Now, on isolation movements, hitting failure is far less fatiguing and can be done more often. So dial these things into your training and it's going to be very difficult to be doing something wrong enough to stunt your gains. Now, let's talk about nutrition. Yes, training is the stimulus, but you still can't really out-train a poor diet. And these mistakes are some of the most common reasons lifters don't see the results as it pertains to what they do outside of the gym. Let's see how many you might be making. The first is not eating enough for growth phases. Now, the fear of gaining fat holds so many lifters back. If you're always in a deficit or stuck at maintenance in an attempt to hold on to your abs, you'll never grow as fast as you otherwise could. Maintaining has its time and place, but in most cases, an intentional surplus over a long period of time is how muscle growth is maximized. During a bulk, aim for a slight calorie surplus of 5 to 10% over maintenance. Now, if you're a beginner or an early intermediate, you can get away with even more typically, now that your training is going to be dialed in from the previous section. Yes, either way you'll gain a bit of fat, but controlled growth is the best way to add muscle and get jacked faster. Men, no need to go above around 18% body fat at any point throughout your bulks. Women make it closer to about 28% at most. The second big nutrition mistake is food quality. Yes, you can see good results without good food quality and just shoveling cereals and protein shakes down, but there are levels to this game. Whole nutrient-dense foods fuel better sleep, better digestion, health, and satiety better than processed junk does, which indirectly means faster recovery and better performance at the very least. Structure your meals with lean, whole food protein sources, a variety of good carb sources, and of course healthy fat sources for sustained energy, satiety, along with the max gains and health. The third mistake here is too aggressive of a deficit or surplus. Going to the extreme in either direction is a big mistake for the most part. Bulking too fat leads to the unnecessary fat gain, as we've covered, while aggressive cuts, on the other hand, will absolutely tank your performance, flood in diet fatigue, and eventually potentially burn through muscle and motivation. When gaining, aim for 0.5 to 1% of your total body weight monthly, and when cutting, aim for 0.5 to 1% of your body weight lost weekly. Start here and take it from there for more control over the process and less time wasted on damage control afterwards. Suboptimal macronutrient profile is the fourth mistake, as I still see a lot of people making this one. These days, protein targets are being set too low if the goal is maximum physique progress. I've made entire videos breaking down the data and recommendations, but ideally, setting protein at least 1 gram per pound of ideal future body weight, at around 10% body fat for men or 20% for women, sometimes even slightly above 1 gram per pound of that, would probably maximize all benefits of higher protein intake beyond just more potential muscle growth and recovery. Pay attention to carbs and fats and try to keep them consistent most days of the week if the goal is to maximize performance and recovery as well. Fats are good to set at around 25%, and then you fill in the rest with carbs. Yes, prioritize protein, but don't just avoid keeping your eye on fats and carbs altogether. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. That is the fifth most common issue in nutrition. A simple meal prep system, such as my meal prep mastery process here on my channel, which includes cooking proteins and carbs in bulk for several meals of the coming 1 to 2 weeks, maybe some veggies too, instantly saves you time, effort, and often money in hitting the targets needed for faster results. 1 or 2 hours every couple of weeks is more than enough if you do it right, and especially if you are okay with eating similar foods for lunch every week, for instance. So add these simple nutrition fixes in, and you're gonna see a dramatic uptick in results, but you also feel, sleep, perform, and look better day to day. By the way, if you feel like you're doing a lot of these mistakes so far in the video, you can get it all dialed in nearly instantly with my help by joining the Modern Physique Hub. You can check that out with the link in the description below. Your mindset and overall strategy from a big picture standpoint are the frame within which your training and nutrition fit. After all, it doesn't really matter if you're doing every single thing correctly. If you don't think you are, or you're simply impatient, it won't matter. So here are some of the things to look out for in this third aspect. Number 1 is chasing optimal over consistency. It's easy to fall into the trap of chasing the perfect program split or obsessing over minor details like maximizing motor unit recruitment without accumulating peripheral in-session fatigue, or whether you're achieving a 137 calorie surplus or deficit. The reality is, no single program or single detail will beat out consistent execution of all the basics. You don't need the most advanced techniques if you're consistently doing one or more of the mistakes listed out so far in this video, progressing in the gym, and sticking to your nutrition plan overall. I'll say it again, the fundamentals will always matter more than micromanaging every variable, at least until you get past the early intermediate stage, or even just until you reach true advanced status. Focus on fixing the issues laid out so far, stay consistent, and build momentum before diving into advanced tweaks and optimization. Number 2 is impatience and unrealistic expectations. Building an impressive physique is a long-term game, but social media often sets unrealistic expectations. You'll see people claiming transformations in 12 weeks, which can make it feel like you're failing if you don't see dramatic results fast. But here's the truth, those overnight results often come from beginners, extreme diets, or are straight up fake. Muscle growth and fat loss are gradual processes. Think months and years, not weeks. The key is patience. Celebrate small wins along the way and focus on long-term habits. Commit to showing up consistently and trust that the results will come if you stick with it. Trust me, I get it. I used to think I was going to be able to reach Jay Cutler levels of muscle when I was starting out, all naturally, by the way. But the key thing for me was I knew I was going to stay in this game for years to come. So no matter how discouraged I got at times, I knew I was never going to give up anyways, so might as well just see how far I can take it. Number 3 is neglecting recovery foundations. You see, recovery is where the magic happens. This is where your muscles repair and grow. If you're not prioritizing sleep, you're leaving gains on the table or just losing them, honestly. Aim for 7 to 9 hours per night and create a routine to wind down before bed. Stress is another silent killer. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, which can hinder recovery and fat loss and downregulate baseline testosterone. Use strategies like breathing meditation or daily walks to manage stress and mood. And don't overlook rest days. Your body needs time to recharge, so don't feel guilty for taking a day off. Active recovery like stretching or light cardio can keep you moving and make the most out of those rest days without overtaxing your system. Number 4 is not adjusting your environment. Your surroundings have a massive impact on results. A chaotic, unorganized environment creates unnecessary friction that makes it harder to stick to your plan. For example, if your training sessions aren't scheduled or structured in, or you don't have meals prepped, you're going to be more likely to skip your workouts or make poor food choices. So simplify your setup. Curate your environment to make it easier to hit the targets needed throughout your day-to-day when needed. When you remove distractions and you make your environment work for you, consistency becomes second nature. And yes, this can often include current friend groups as well. If they truly are not helping or supporting you in reaching your goals and it bothers you, it might be time to make some changes there. Number 5 is refusing to pivot when progress stalls. Listen, plateaus are inevitable to some degree at times, but refusing to adjust is a mistake that keeps many lifters stuck for way longer than is necessary. If your lifts aren't improving, your body composition isn't changing, or your motivation is waning and it's been months, it's time to pivot. This doesn't always mean overhauling everything. Small adjustments can reignite progress. For example, if your calories are too low to sustain energy, bump them up slightly. If exercise feels ineffective or uncomfortable, swap it out for an alternative. Maybe your training intensity is too low, or you're overtraining and need to scale back. The best programs evolve as you do, so be flexible and keep refining your approach. So let's bring it all together. Building your best physique isn't about perfection. It's about stacking small wins, avoiding common mistakes, and showing up day after day. Here's what you need to remember from this video. Fix your training mistakes first. These are the easiest, most actionable fixes to implement right away. Focus on progressive overload, nail your form, rest appropriately between sets, and structure your sessions intelligently. Avoid redundancy and train with the right intensity. Every set counts. Then dial in your nutrition next. Eat enough to fuel growth, but avoid going overboard, including avoiding aggressive cuts. Stop trying to speed run this. Build a nutrition plan with quality foods, proper macros, and consistency, and don't underestimate the power of meal prep. It is a game changer. Then master your mindset along the way. Stop hyperfixating on what's optimal and start focusing on consistency of the basics first and getting really good at those. Set realistic expectations, which probably means prepare for it to take an extra 2 to 6 years from where you currently are before you get to a point where you are in awe of your own physique. In the meantime, prioritize recovery and build an environment that supports your goals. And when progress stalls, adapt and pivot. Don't just keep grinding in the wrong direction and beating yourself up for it when you see abysmal results from doing so. Look, we all make mistakes. In fact, the reason I'm making this video is because I probably made every mistake in the book and for many years. In fact, it took many years to get to a point where I truly understand and respect the levels that exist in this game and just how few people reach the highest of them. It's not about not making mistakes or finding the perfect setup that suddenly causes 300% more results in half the time. It's about refining each aspect of the journey, forging the character, the understanding, and ultimately the physique as an outward manifestation of mastery over time in this domain. So for those of you willing to do just that, I'll be seeing you at the top.